Good evening and welcome to the Monday, May 12, 2014 Board of Education meeting. As is our custom, please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a full agenda tonight, and I think what we're going to try to do is do our best to move items that involve people earlier in the agenda, as opposed to things like, I don't know, financial reports and so forth. We'll do those later in the agenda, if that makes sense to the board. Item 3 on the agenda is a student recognition item relating to the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education Student Leader Awards. Dr. Freeman, do you want to introduce how to proceed in proceeding on this particular item?
I'd be happy to. Annually, the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education asks school districts to recommend students who show exceptional performance and leadership qualities, and the board here in Guilford partners with Mr. Micenti in recognizing the students who receive this award. I'd like to invite Mr. Micenti to come to the podium and introduce our recipients.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Will Frederick Trotta please come forward, and Claire Weil please come forward. Two tremendous senior citizens, and they've got nothing but great things ahead of them. Just wanted them to get used to that, that's all. I put together a few words for each of these students, and I just want to take the time to share with everyone something about both. And I'll do Freddie first. Frederick Trotta's tremendous leadership in our school, outstanding character, and community involvement is admirable. During Frederick's tenure at Guilford High School, I have called upon him to serve in important leadership roles for school-wide events. Frederick was called upon to represent the student body during our school's selection of an assistant principal and dean of students. He served on both the interview and selection committees. As well, I called upon Frederick to serve as one of our student representatives to the Board of Education. He is called upon monthly to speak to the Board of Education and answers questions from the board as needed. Also, Frederick was selected by his peers and our lacrosse coaching staff to serve as captain of this year's boys lacrosse team. His selection demonstrates the confidence that his teammates and coaches have in him. Frederick's desire to lead and to do it well is also evidence that his involvement as a peer minister in our local church. In this role, Frederick serves as a role model and teacher while leading the youth of the parish through their development and understanding of faith. Frederick Trotta's leadership has powerfully and positively impacted our high school and community, and I'm confident that this kind of leadership will prove valuable to whichever college community he chooses. And he has chosen a college community. He'll attend Providence College and major in business. Congratulations, Fred.
Frederick, on behalf of the entire Board of Education, we first of all appreciate everything you've done for the board this year in reporting and attending these meetings and offering your insight, very valuable insight. We know you have the brightest of futures, and we hope that you take advantage of every opportunity that you have and continue to work hard and be a leader that we can all be proud of. So again, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Claire Weil. Impeccable, strong, resilient, and flawless are adjectives which best describe Claire Weil's character. As a high school principal of 24 years, never have I been associated with a young lady whose character was finer. Her participation in leadership and activities and her tremendous contributions to them have been exemplary. Claire's membership in Guilford High School's National Honor Society and her consistent selection to our high honors list mirrors Claire's level of achievement in the classroom. As well, Claire's selection as a student representative to our high school's Safe Schools Climate Committee, a committee of teachers, administrators, students, and parents designed to improve the school climate and safety, demonstrates our school's confidence in Claire's leadership and character. As well, Claire is co-president of our school's Action Against Hunger Club. Her leadership mirrors the club's desire to eradicate hunger both locally and worldwide. Claire's desire to help others is also evident as an officer with our school's Unity Club. The club promotes acceptance and tolerance throughout our school community, and Claire's involvement has never wavered. Claire's conscientious approach to her academic course of study, coupled with her participation in Guilford High School's state championship soccer team, add to her candidacy for recognition by the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. This young lady's outstanding scholarship and leadership are attributes that will contribute positively and purposefully to campus life at a college or university of her choice, and she has chosen a college. She'll attend Tulane, where she'll pursue a degree in public health and then pre-med. And I'm just going to share a couple more things and kind of ad lib. First of all, when you leave, go out through the main doors instead of this one, because this is an artist exemplar. And when you walk through the main exit, the main entrance and out those doors, her senior art exhibit is displayed. And it is fabulous. It really reminds me every day of what little talent I have. So she's incredible. And the last thing I want to leave the Board of Ed is this. This is a senior who played on a state championship soccer team. She was not the starting goalkeeper. In fact, there were 3 goalkeepers. And she occasionally got some playing time. You would think that someone who is a senior, who is not starting, who is not playing a significant amount of time, might turn their back on that sport, might call it quits, might just kind of drag themselves around. And this young lady did everything but that. When I first went to the first game, I thought she was the starting goalkeeper. I watched her warm up, and it was like, wow, she was diving for balls, and then she went to the bench. And it happened almost every game. Now, I will never forget this young lady's character and her will to not let her teammates down, but as important, and this young lady can verify it, the powerful leadership she displayed by being that kind of person on that team. So congratulations, well deserved.
Claire, your accomplishments are impressive, but what I notice most about Mr. Masenti's kind words is that your commitment to the Guilford High School family is really special, and I'm sure you'll be very successful at Tulane as a leader and in everything that you do. So on behalf of the entire board, thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to, just to give people a preview, we're going to go to item 3, then 4, then 9.1, then 9.2, then move to the 10.4, which is the math textbook. So and then we'll circle back and try to figure out the rest of the agenda. Item 4 on the agenda is a teacher recognition, which seems like it's not the first time that it's happened. This is beginning to be a fairly regular occurrence, but the Connecticut Science Teachers Association has awarded one of our high school teachers the Excellence in Science Teaching Award. Dr. Freeman, do you want to comment on this?
Only to say that Raisa Rodzinski could not be with us this evening. Last month, she was awarded this recognition at the Peabody Museum in New Haven. I know that Mr. Masenti was with her when she received her award. We are sorry that she could not be here for the board to add their recognition tonight, but we did want to note the accomplishment. It's not the first time. She is a standout, and we are happy to have her as part of the team and proud of her contributions here at Guilford High School.
Well, she is an outstanding teacher. I know everybody, all of us that who've had contact with her agree that she is just a treasure to the Guilford High School community, and we look forward to her continuing to teach for many, many years moving forward. But we will send her our own congratulations.
I will pass it on. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda under the the next item that we're going to go to on the agenda under the superintendent's report is a brief video presentation by the Students Against Drunk Driving group here at the high school, I believe, correct? Do you want to introduce this?
Again, I'm going to invite Mr. Masenti to come back to the podium and make the introductions for the students tonight. He went too far away. And we're going to have to move. It's about a 9-minute video. We're going to need to move.
Matthew and Taylor, our co-presidents, Lucy, an officer in our SAD as well. I just want to introduce all three. They have made a powerful impact on our school community this year. And throughout the entire year, SAD has done a number of activities throughout our school that really take a stance against drugs and alcohol and destructive student behavior. And what makes this group so powerful is they will take a stand, and they will let people know how they feel. And they will let people know what the majority of our students in our school feel about alcohol and drugs and destructive student behavior. And they will take a stance. And they will take a stance in front of anybody to tell this community what this school truly believes in. And so what they're going to do tonight for you, very briefly, they're going to describe a very powerful week for our school, but a week that carried on into a month and carried on, actually began months ago. And these three students, their leadership is one powerful reminder, once again, of what our school community truly believes in as it relates to student behavior. They're going to describe very briefly each day of SAD Week and what occurred here in our building, and they're going to show you a 9-minute video, I think it is, that Taylor directed and made for this school, which included as participants Matthew and Lucy. But it is a powerful, powerful video that we showed our entire school, and I think it will have a tremendous impact on all of you. So I don't know which one wants to come first and talk about the SAD Week.
Hi, so a couple weeks ago we had SAD Week, and so it was 5 different events, sort of themed days. The first day was Grim Reaper Day, in which we went around and one of us was dressed in a Grim Reaper costume, and every 33 minutes removed somebody from class, symbolizing how somebody dies every 33 minutes in a drunk driving accident. And then the next day was Car Safety Day, in which we stood at the end of the parking lot and handed out Smarties to those of the students that had seatbelts on. Kick Butts Day was a day revolving around ending smoking cigarettes and like kicking butts, sort of a thing. The next day was a mock car crash, and that involved the senior class came onto the hill behind the school, and we put on a mock car crash with real response time and police and firefighters. And then we showed this video the next day, and we wore red on Friday. So do either of you want to talk about anything? Okay, so Matt will talk.
For our mock car crash, we planned that months in advance. We had to get the police department as well as the fire department. Also, people at the Guilford Funeral Home came to work with the hearse and with the body bags. And Officer Cho from the Guilford Police Department narrated it and also offered the students to ask questions during it so people could have a real understanding of what actually happens when you drink and drive. Thanks.
So the video that we are about to see is the second video that SAD has made. We wanted to show a video that didn't just say, like, don't do this, because we think that that doesn't really send, like, a powerful message. So we wanted to show someone that's doing the right things, and then something happens where people don't take action, and we want people to make smart decisions and be informed and really just save lives, I guess. So I guess we'll show it now. Great.
I could feel a hot one taking me down. For a moment I could feel the force, fainting to the point of tears, and you were holding on to make a point. I'm but a clean man, stable and alone man, make a song, won't have to try. The faces always stay the same, so I face the fact that I'm just fine. I said that I'm just fine. This is loving, Italy's, heaven knows it's high time. I've been waiting on my own too long. When you hold me like you do, feel so right. Oh, now stop to forget how my heart is torn when that hurt gets thrown, feeling like it go on. Turning circles, time again, cut like a knife. Oh, now if you love me, got to know for sure. 'Cause it takes something more this time. Sweet, sweet lies. Oh, now before I open up my eyes and fall, losing all control. Every dream inside my soul. When you kiss me on that midnight, sweet, sweet me out my feet, singing endless lives so sweet. This is loving, Italy's.
Well, that's one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. That was just outstanding. And hope that message really gets out, and hope that we can help in any way. You know, you'll call on us to help any way we possibly can. That's a message that has to be repeated and get out. And you were to be thanked and congratulated for helping to get that message out. If you save one life, it's all worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Actually, it wouldn't be a horrible idea to take a little break, but maybe we'll just press on. I do want to go back, actually, to the item 8, student representatives. I know you guys have a little bit of homework in your waning days here, and some of you are your waning days here, so I would like to go ahead and call on you to do the student representative report.
Sure, I'll kick it off. We've got a lot happening in the high school as the school year is winding down. Senior prom's coming up on the 6th, so everyone's getting their tuxedos and dresses and spray tans now. So that's big. And then we have sports are coming to an end too. So next time you guys see me and Gabby, we'll be done with senior sports for forever. And then beyond that is we have our induction for the National Honor Society, May 19th. And a big one is Appleby Robotics, finished in the top 15 at St. Louis in the Nationals.
Wow.
So we're one of the top 15 robotics schools in the country. Theater has been selected for a Halo Award on May 28th. They don't know what it is yet, but they'll find out then, and that's big. And then lastly, we got Cry Baby Cry golf tournament for Interact, and that's May 17th at Guilford Lakes.
And we also have, as the year's ending, a lot of awards ceremonies. So we have undergraduate awards, senior awards, Sideliners Athletic Awards, and Senior Scholarship Night, all on different nights in the auditorium. And those dates are all on the website. And then we have a lot of senior activities going on. Actually, I think this week is our last full week in school for seniors because we have our senior outing at Holiday Hill on May 30th and senior breakfast on June 2nd and a bunch of other things. And also graduation is June 19th, as you probably know. And we also have, for our music department, some concerts, the last ones of the year. We have chorus on May 21st, orchestra and jazz band on May 28th, and concert band on June 3rd.
And then recently, about 2 weeks ago, we had junior prom, which I was at, and it was very fun. It was very successful. And then as we just watched that video, SAD Week was a very powerful week for the high school, which was actually, we actually had SAD Week up to Friday, which was prom. So it was showing what prom could be like. And then also we have AP testing going on, and this is our second week of AP testing going on. And then I'm very happy to announce that Gabby will be attending Harvard in the fall, and Fred will be attending Providence College.
Terrific.
So
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
and that's it.
That's all we got.
Yeah.
Any questions? Or should we send them along their way to do their assignments?
Stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
very
Have a
much.
nice night.
So why don't we go to 9.2, which is, I understand there's,
Should we do public comment first?
no, I think we'll do public comment on, as it comes up on whatever the topics are. Maybe I can just ask, are there people here for the Calvin Lee playground issue? Yes? Okay. Why don't we do that right now?
Great, okay.
This is item 9.2, so if,
And I will invite Principal
Take your
Nancy
time.
Bishop to introduce this one.
you're right, okay.
I've asked for a few minutes to just kick off this part of the meeting because it made me really realize during the video how important it is to live in a town where we treasure our children and try to find the best, most safe environment for them. And this is probably the best segue we could make to say, for our youngest children, it's really important to start when they're 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, to create an environment that is safe and fun, because we want our children to have wonderful childhoods. And I looked at Freddie Trotta, because yes, we used to call him Freddie before he became Frederick and Fred, and realized that when he first came to Calvin Lee many years ago, our playground was already 20 years old. So luckily, about 2 years ago, 2 of our parents, followed by the PTO, got together and said, you know what? We need to provide a safe, happy environment for our children in elementary school. And as you know, with Dr. Freeman's support, with the Board of Education's endorsement, they created Phase 1 and 2. And then we thought, who will ever pick up the mantle and run with that? And we were very fortunate that this year's co-presidents, and I'll have them come up now, Christine Neislich and Tracy Lynch got together with their PTO and have done wonders. And I'm not going to take any more of their thunder from this, but I would like to say thank you publicly to all the people at Calvin Lee, the 4 co-presidents who spearheaded the effort, to all the parents that donated, to the children that donated, and to all the people that believed in this project. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Christine Neislich and Tracy Lynch.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak this evening. I know you have a lot on your agenda, so we won't take up a lot of your time, but we do want to go through the formal step of offering the Board of Education on the behalf of the 2013-2014 Calvin Lee PTO to present the Calvin Lee Elementary School with the final Phase 3 and 4 kindergarten through 2nd grade playground. It is complete, it is paid for, it is installed, it is being played on. So we'd like to offer that gift to the Board of Education. My co-president, Tracy Lynch, is just passing around a picture of what it looks like, so those of you who no longer have elementary students can see what it was that we put together. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Well, on behalf of the board, we certainly want to thank you for everything that you did to get this project going. This is, as is always the case, it takes a few really hardworking people to get a project like this off the ground and really to see it through to the conclusion. I was actually over there the other day for a soccer game, and it is an outstanding facility, and I know the kids are really going to enjoy it. We owe you a very deep debt of gratitude for all the hard work you did, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so let me just ask, is there anybody here on something other than the math textbook? Okay. Do you have a question or comment or? No, public comment regarding the Smarter Balance. Yeah, go ahead. Let's do that now. Is there anybody else have something other than the math textbook? No? Okay. Forgive me for doing it this way. I'm just, trying to be as efficient as we possibly can be.
Thank you very much. My name is Marion Breeze, 42 Arrowhead Drive in Guilford. I understand that Smarter Balance update is on the agenda for this evening, and I would like to ask that Dr. Freeman and Dr. Keene consider as part of the Smarter Balanced issue when you're reporting back to the state and to the Board of Ed the results of the Smarter Balance field testing, that there's some inclusion of not just the test results or the outcomes or the data regarding how many students participated, but also the costs to every school. And I don't just mean the financial costs of the additional networking that had to be done, the IT costs, but there's hidden costs too to providing the Smarter Balance practice testing. And I'll just give you a few examples that you all may or may not be aware of. At Adams Middle School, we had 60-plus days of testing, which to me as a parent was quite a surprise. Some of those classrooms at Adams had to triple in size, so that students taking some of the music classes had to have triple-sized classes for those 60 days. We also had other expenses at Adams related to substitute teachers who had to be brought in so that teachers could be taken out of the classroom for additional training to be proctors. I don't know if that happened at all the schools. As a parent, as a member of the community, I think it would be helpful to know what those costs are and hopefully see some measurable change next year where some of those costs in time and resources and money are reduced between this year and next year. One more cost I would like to mention is my son reported to me at Adams that he had at least 5 class periods that were spent practicing for the practice test. So while I understand that, it's up to the teachers and the administrators to decide what a necessary cost is, I think it's also equally important that it's reported back to the state what those costs are at each and every community so that they understand over between this year and next year how to reduce those costs, how to make it more efficient and effective, and so that we also as a community understand when we're budgeting for things like IT infrastructure that a better case can be made next year, for example, for improving the IT networks at each of the schools and for the real costs to be included in the Smarter Balanced evaluation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We are, I think, when the whole the testing period is over, that we are expecting a thorough report, yes. And I think we were going to have a report from Mr. Mitchell relating to technology infrastructure, but deferred that until after this as well. So that actually was already on the agenda, but I think we've asked for a full report. And
yes. Tonight's update will be brief and informal. There will be a lengthier, more formal report closer to the end of the school year.
Right, okay. We did add the frog, by the way, just as, a little bit of color. It's, somebody's going to have to take custody of the frog when the building gets torn down.
That's true.
Yeah, somebody, actually maybe a fundraiser for GFFE, right? Who gets the high school frog?
Relocation?
Yeah, something like that. All right. All right, is anybody else here other than for a math textbook issue, question, comment? Okay, then why don't we go to that. Go to item 10.4, which is, it's labeled act on. It's not necessarily act on. We may or may not act on it tonight, depending on whether we have questions or other concerns. So, Dr. Freeman, do you want to start off with this?
Briefly, sure. At your last formal meeting, we brought forward a recommendation asking the board to adopt a new K-5 math resource, Bridges in Mathematics. At that meeting, we overviewed the process. We had a presentation from Dr. Keene and Mrs. Carreri and teachers who were involved on the review committee and presented that textbook adoption to the board. Since that time, the materials have been available at Lathrop House for the past month for community members and board members to come in and view. Additionally, during that time, we hosted an evening session where we showcased those materials to the community. I need to say that I am very much pleased by the conversation that has generated. It is often the case that a textbook is presented to this board. It sits at Lathrop House for a month with little interest and no review, and we come back a month later and ask the board to adopt that textbook. I am heartened by the community participation in this process. Mr. Bloss has said several times over the last couple of years that it's nice to be talking about education. We're not talking about building problems. We're not talking about a budget crisis. We're talking about moving our instruction forward. I will say that I am here tonight supporting the recommendation that has come from the teaching staff for this text. I'll note that in 2010, the State Board of Education adopted a set of new standards for instruction for K through 12 in Connecticut. They adopted the Common Core State Standards. Immediately following that adoption here in Guilford, we began working on first the instructional shifts, learning what those standards communicated to us, and then working on aligning our curricula to those standards as would be expected, as is our responsibility. Last year, we brought a new curriculum forward to this Board of Education. We brought an interim report before bringing the final curriculum. Ultimately, we brought a new math curriculum to this Board of Education, and I think in that meeting, both Dr. Keene and I noted that both the process and the result set a new bar for curricular expectations in this district. The math curriculum that we brought forward continues to be something of which I am very, very proud. Following that adoption, we immediately began searching for resources to support that curriculum, and that is the proper order of events. First, there are standards. We rewrite our curricula to target us towards those standards, and then and only then do we begin looking for the resource that appropriately supports the curriculum that we have written in the district. The curriculum is written locally by Guilford teachers, targeted towards the standards, and the resources to support that curriculum are vetted locally by Guilford teachers, then presented for public conversation. Again, tonight we're in part of that public conversation. In the last month, I've had numerous conversations with parents who have come in to view the materials. I've had numerous conversations with principals and teachers about their position on the materials. I've had numerous conversations with Dr. Keene and Mrs. Carreri as they've engaged in those conversations with community members and Board of Education members as well. In the last couple of weeks, we have received comments, questions from both community members and board members. We have engaged the publishing company, sharing many of the comments that we have received back to the publisher, creating what has become a dialogue with them. And again, I just want to say that I am very happy to be here and to have this kind of turnout tonight to discuss what is best for the children of Guilford moving forward. With that, I know that we have community members who are present, teachers who are present, members of the review committee who are present to be part of the conversation, to answer your questions, and to give you any information you need as you make your decision moving forward. I'll ultimately say, I'm here again asking the board to approve the resource that has been vetted and brought forward by the teachers of the Guilford Public Schools.
Okay, then I think what I'd like to suggest is that we can entertain comment at this time from both either teachers and the public. I think the teachers probably are part of the public. It's a fair observation. I do just want to add one thing that the board asked the administration to do after the committee made its proposal was to try to get some kind of evidence about what the track record of this particular resource was in other districts. Because we were told that Madison was using part of it. Yes. And so we, I think, asked for some information about what some comparable comparable to whatever degree comparable can be accomplished, materials or the experience with some other districts that maybe we think are at least not dissimilar to ours. And I know that Dr. Keene has given us some written information about that from some districts, and I think we all find that helpful. So what I would like to do, how many people want to make a comment or ask a question about the resources? If you just raise your hand just generally. All right, let me suggest this. Why don't we, I'm going to follow, who is it, Mr. Cello at the town meeting says first one, somebody in favor of it, second one, somebody not in favor of it, third one in favor. We'll see if we can, that may fall apart at some point, but let's
At some point,
yeah, at some point it will, but let's see if we can do that. So why don't we have, first of all, somebody who is in favor of the board adopting this particular resource. Please, come on up. Just give us your name and address, and if you're a teacher, just let us know that, because I think that would be helpful to know. And I should say also, we got some written communications from people that, to the extent that they are not covered tonight, we can, in somebody's comments, we may circle back to that.
Hi. My name is Louise Worrell. I teach second grade at Guilford Lakes, and I've taught in Guilford for nearly 40 years. So I've seen a lot of math programs come and go, and tonight I'm here to represent the Lake staff. We compiled a letter that I'm going to read tonight. It says, the teachers at Guilford Lake School believe that the most effective way to educate our students in mathematics includes differentiation among all levels of learners. Educating our students also includes the use of manipulatives to allow students to progress and practice at different speeds, technology, workbooks for reinforcement in the classroom, and a home-to-school connection that allows parents to see what their child is learning. These attributes allow both parents and teachers to reinforce what the students are working on in the classroom. We believe that the Bridges resource incorporates these features in a way that allows teachers and students to develop mathematical skills. The Bridges resource will assist in establishing a sturdy and consistent mathematical foundation so that the students will be able to learn higher concepts in mathematics. Furthermore, the Bridges resource aligns well with the Common Core state standards. Bridges is more student-centered in that it gives the students opportunities to engage in learning mathematics by using lessons that have a student-friendly layout and hands-on activities. The teachers at Guilford Lakes are very interested in their students and want them to achieve. We believe the Bridges resource is an effective tool that will allow us to educate our students and prepare them to learn higher mathematical concepts as they matriculate into the upper grades. We are hoping that the Bridges materials will be purchased by the Guilford Public Schools prior to the start of the 2014-2015 school year. Doing so at this time will allow teachers to familiarize themselves with the lessons before the school year begins. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact any of the teachers at Lakes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, I actually do have a question, and it follows up on something Dr. Myers and I have talked about. The reports that Dr. Keene got from some other districts, one of the issues, I guess, that has been raised by some districts is, I think one of the districts said that the materials to the teacher can be overwhelming, or a bit overwhelming at first anyway. Have you thought about that, and do you?
I wasn't on the committee, and I really only looked at it briefly, but it looked certainly more teacher-friendly than the resources we have been using. So from the people I've talked to in the building, they think that it's certainly more manageable.
Yeah, and I should say that I think anybody that's adopted this has said that PD, professional development, is essential, very important part of it. So, okay, good. Anybody else have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, other side, contrary view, dissenting opinion? All right. Then
Don't be shy.
Hi.
Sorry if I'm reading from my phone. Hi, I'm Pam Medvecki, 245 Flat Meadow Road, and I have taken the opportunity to review Bridges in math and saw some things to like about it, but I do have concerns about adopting it right now for Guilford K through 5. While I appreciate that better math resources are urgently needed, I think that it's irresponsible for our district to spend that much money to adopt Bridges in math simply because, or not simply because, but because it's the best aligned on the shelf without due consideration of Singapore-based math resources like Math in Focus that are used in Common Core aligned districts whose students outperform ours in math, and that will be fully aligned in 2015-16 editions. I think if the going timetable for math resources, specifically the highly regarded Math in Focus, is next year, and I believe that Math in Focus is available to be viewed, but I don't believe we were able to view that. Our district was not given the opportunity to view that. Our teachers were not given an opportunity to consider it. I think these decisions need to be thoughtful, and it feels a little rushed. It's an investment of great magnitude, and I think we need due consideration. I guess when Dr. Freeman explains how the curricular standards are established and then everything is written and then the resources are sought, I do understand that. That is the usual process, perhaps. I guess but on a fundamental level, it kind of puts the cart before the horse. We don't, and puts us in as a district in transition that we need to quickly get something to our teachers, get them the resource that they need, and I believe that's the frenzy that we're in right now, is that we need something that's better than the New York math. But I don't understand how we could admit from due consideration something like Math in Focus that is used by some of these districts, some Common Core aligned districts that fare better than Guilford in many math assessments. I think that the evaluative process eliciting this proposed adoption could have been more thorough, can be seen as too narrow, and I believe that we are a district that does not want to dash into uncharted waters and fund a textbook adoption. This is a pretty major undertaking that we want to live with for a while, and our students to really be able to embrace and live and learn from. I guess I don't buy that we must adopt Bridges in math or suffer through more engaged New York. We're not just looking at K through 5 here. We're looking at K through 5 and going forward with 6 through 12, which those resources not quite available yet, but that's where we're going forward. It seems that there's a reason that it's difficult to find a text that aligns with our district's every desired principle and standard, and that is perhaps that no resource wants to be that rigid and narrow. I think we'll be best off adopting a resource whose best asset is not its strict alignment, but rather its integrity and its track record. I did, again, look at Bridges in math for a while. I looked at the 5th grade, I looked at the 2nd grade materials, and it's a weighty, scripted resource. There's a lot to it. In a way, it can be cumbersome, but that's not my judgment to make. If the teachers feel like it gives them materials, that means a lot. But when I was looking at it, what I was struck most by is the redundancy. A lot of time spent dwelling on successive means of visualization, picture drawing math. with a de-emphasis on establishing and building actual numeric operations. My fifth graders teacher apparently took a lesson from the Bridges in Math last week. I recognized it at the dinner table as something that I had seen in the materials. And so he reported 3 fun days of drawing a trail map and key. They're working on fractions, but you know, it was a very involved trail map with a key, campfires drawn with keys, and it seemed to me, again, I'm not in the classroom, but that fraction lessons were a far too fractional part of the endeavor. I applaud the teacher's initiative to try something, but for me, her effort ended up sort of highlighting the resources on over-reliance on visual exercises. So that's one caveat. Anyway, so in sum, I believe that this adoption discussion should be tabled until we can fully consider Math in Focus coming edition, which is aligned and is available for viewing and is available for fall. And that we can do better to tap a full spectrum of resources to support our teachers and students in this time of curricular transition. We are in transition, but that doesn't make, it shouldn't be an urgently made, an emergency means kind of decision. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask one question? Yes. The Math in Focus, according to the materials we got, they have not released a revised aligned edition, although they have released what they call alignment documents for their current editions, and that they don't expect to release a revised aligned edition until the fall of 2015. Is that consistent with your understanding?
That had been my understanding until recently. You know, my thought process was until very recently, you know, a day ago, that perhaps we could really work on drumming up stronger resources to support us in this transition so that we can consider if the timetable is really skewed more toward 2015, 2016, these textbooks, various textbooks that are very well regarded, being fully aligned, if that's the timetable 2015-16, then maybe we should be in that, we should be there too and bide our time until we can really fully consider those. But I believe that it is available for this fall.
Well, maybe you could confirm that, because that's the information we have.
Okay.
Or maybe, yeah.
We spoke to the publisher of Math in Focus during the process.
Okay, well, it's, and can I say, let me just say one other thing. We understand that there is no perfect textbook, set of materials, instructional materials out there. There wasn't a perfect set last time we went through this in 2003 or 4, whenever it was. Whatever we buy is going to be supplemented with something. It just has to be, because we do have an individually written curriculum. What we are trying to do is move toward a powerful, a good, a useful, the best available for what our purposes are. But I don't think any of us pretends that there is a perfect set of instructional materials out there in this area or in any other area. So I just, want everybody to be aware of that. The last time when we did Everyday Mathematics, I think we understood that there were some weaknesses in that program with, as I recall, some specific, some of the algorithms that were used in some of the earlier grades specifically. And so we said, look, we're going to have to supplement those with maybe the existing textbooks. And we did. Now, where we are right now, we're in a different place, obviously, in terms of the standards, and so nobody should think that this is, whatever we do, that this is the end of it. The other comment I just want to make is that I don't think we feel any particular emergency to do this, and in fact, I'd say that the fact that the administration is not recommending materials for 6, 7, and 8 actually is some evidence of that. They've said, look, we're going to make do, and we actually have a substantial need at the middle school for instructional materials. I don't think there's, as the parent of two middle schoolers, I'm acutely aware of the need for instructional materials in the middle school, but the administration has said, look, we don't feel comfortable with any of the materials right now, and so that's probably is going to be held off for some period of time. So I appreciate the comment about being thoughtful, and we're going to try to do that. Did you have a comment about?
Just to clarify the timeline, so there is an aligned released one coming out this fall, and when I spoke to the publisher, she said nothing has changed in the student materials from what is available now. The only addition is in the teacher's edition. There's a dual alignment document that shows you which lessons, if you want to teach not Common Core or just follow the Singapore path, you can do, or you can follow a Common Core path, which tells you which ones to skip and which ones to do. And then also, she said within the lessons, there are now highlighted bullets showing you which Common Core standards align to the lesson. Those are the shifts that the changes that they've made, but nothing to the actual instruction.
Okay.
Just to add, I believe that, I appreciate your comments, Mr. Blatz. I don't mean to direct all attention to Math in Focus. I don't see it as a perfect resource necessarily for us. I just, I don't feel good about going forward with Bridges in Math without having given it due consideration, giving it and or other perhaps resources out there that, that's the Singapore math-based ones that stand out, that are used by comparable excellent districts that are Common Core aligned. I don't feel that it's just good decision-making for us to move forward on having not considered it. And I know we can't get a perfect resource, but I believe that we want integrity. We want a track record that's proven, and we want it to work within the standards. And my understanding on the Math in Focus is that it was not revised, officially revised to whatever degree for this fall because it was already Common Core aligned, that the materials already worked for the standards.
That wasn't my understanding at all.
There's been a cross-reference document.
You're right.
Or,
Yeah.
Already support the Common Core work.
Well, one thing, there was actually a U.S. Education Department study that I think I sent around to the board maybe a month or two ago, that everybody has a sticker on the front of their book that says aligned with the Common Core, and in fact, they aren't. So that's something that frankly, I think that's been a surprise to all of us, that it's not like these snuck up on anybody. These have been in existence since 2010, and you would think that there would have been a more deliberate creation of thoughtful materials, instructional materials, sometime in the next 4 years. But I'm just surprised by that. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be.
Only for commercial reasons.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if 20,000 districts are going to be buying new textbooks, you sort of think that somebody would say, maybe we should try to, whatever.
Well, just to be clear, since we're talking about timelines, the Bridges in Math program is not complete nor released for past grade 2. And currently not ready.
Intended to be released, though, in the fall.
We reviewed draft documents, yes.
Right, okay. Let's hear from. Yeah, okay, yeah. We have plenty of time.
Yeah, it's all right.
The frogs are going to be there all night. All right, can we hear from a favorable person?
Well, a person in favor.
So now we're going to do, so now just because Mr. Masseni called our student reps senior citizens, so we're going to parse language tonight, are we? Is that? Go ahead,
Good
please.
evening. My name is Tara Brinkman. I reside at 574 Long Hill Road. You probably remember me as one of the active parents in the full-day kindergarten program. I am here speaking tonight as a parent, but I do also teach grade 5 math in a district very similar to Guilford and have myself previewed the Bridges program. I think it would be wonderful if our children could have an actual resource that is geared towards the Common Core and produces hands-on material and is geared towards current methods of teaching. We all know the Common Core wants the students to look beyond the how and more into the why. As a math teacher, I have made sure the resources I have pulled allow my students to investigate the why rather than a strictly teacher-driven lesson. I think Bridges Math allows this. While my son won't be entering the Guilford school system for one more year, I think a resource that is geared towards the Common Core is a necessity for the current and for the future students. It is imperative that the resource will benefit both the child and parents as we make our way further into the Common Core, and I feel Bridges will allow this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody who speak against the recommendation? Or, go ahead.
Laura Bauer, 60 Cambridge Way in Guilford. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily speaking against the recommendation. I just was hoping to get some questions clarified.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. I don't mean to, you know.
This evening. And as Mr. Bloss pointed out, I have previously sent a written communication, so
Right.
I'm confident I don't need to read
No,
that.
we've
Reread
all
that.
of
You
us
have
have
it.
had some communications, and I think we've all read them.
Okay, so I just have some questions that I would appreciate at some point this evening, some clarification to. I was wondering how many resources were reviewed by teachers, not just the committee, but if teachers had the opportunity to review in detail any resource other than Bridges in Math to compare it to. I was wondering if Bridges in Math, Mrs. Worrell briefly spoke to this, but I'm not sure of the detail, how and if it easily and effectively supports differentiated instruction in the classroom, not just independent enrichment, but actually differentiated instruction. As Mrs. Sullivan pointed out, this is an unfinished resource for grades 3 through 5, and therefore does not yet have a track record. I'm wondering what the long-term data to support its efficacy in K through 2 is, if that's something that we might be able to compare it to or hope for. Any data from Connecticut districts other than Madison that are similar to us or in our DIRG.
Maybe we should take these one at a time.
I'm sorry.
Rather than, I'm gonna forget. I don't know, are you all writing these down? I mean, there is a first edition of Bridges
For K through 2.
The first edition.
But not for 3 through 5, right?
With the 3 through 5 is I'm sorry?
It's a beta.
Right.
It's what?
We've seen it. It exists. It hasn't been used.
But it's never been used,
Correct.
right? So there's no
Right.
so there's no data on it as far as.
That's correct.
Maria would be the
Okay,
best.
well, yeah, Maria, why don't you come on up and maybe this is going to be impossible to do if we don't kind of keep track of what the questions are. So do you remember?
I really like reading your email. Okay, so first, teachers versus not just the committee. So the way that we always do it is we have a representative from all grades and all schools and have special education and try and have parents, and we had a math educator. So we had a representative group because people have to keep teaching. They can't all take a day off to do it. So that group pulled the resources down. And then we've taken Bridges to all the teachers have had a month to look at it and to have access to online support where they can look through the entire documents and all the supports that are provided. So they've all seen it, but they were not a part of seeing each of the initial
Other
ones.
materials.
Yeah.
Okay.
Differentiated instruction, I think a lot of the teachers wanted to talk to this because this is a part that they were most excited about. It's designed around workshop model. So there's whole group task, and then there's really well-designed activities aligned with the tasks that flow throughout each unit that are already created that then allow the teachers to have small groups going, that they're not having to plan each of those activities, and so that they can then do intervention with one group, do enrichment with another, and so there are suggestions within it for what to do for intervention and enrichment in those. But that piece is always such a hard thing of, especially if you're doing something that's lockstep, of, yeah, well, how am I going to have activities for all these different groups? And that piece that they have seen those activities there to be able to, oh, so if I have these already planned, I'll be able to pull my high group and work with those kids, or I'll be able to pull my intervention. So that's one thing they're most excited about.
Maybe I can add something there, at least from the data that we got from Madison, the report from Stacy Daly, who's the K4 math specialist. The resources align well with instructional strategies to meet the needs of struggling learners. Not the topics presented in a well-designed progression from concrete to representational to abstract, but the support for small group instruction allows teachers to meet the needs of all learners more frequently. And that I think, I'm pretty comfortable from the comments from the other districts that issue is I think at least addressed adequately by the comments from the other districts, but there are other issues obviously.
And then track record for kindergarten through second grade. So the first edition was kindergarten through fifth grade, and that has been around for a number of years. And some of the districts we spoke with had been using that and are now transitioning to the new materials. So the districts who have been using the first edition materials have had tremendous growth. So there was one school district where a number of the schools using it had received state awards for improvement. Multiple districts talked about the growth in scores of both their high-achieving students and their low-achieving students.
Similar to ours.
Yeah. And then for K through 2, who've been piloting it so far, across the board, just the response about the skills that students are coming away with after a year of using it. And they have no reason, they're not selling the product, they're just using it. But there isn't any long-term data at this point. And there won't be for any other program that we would look at because everything is new. But the response we were getting were all very positive responses. One district gave us some pretty concrete data, and they were actually doing a pilot with 2 different programs, and the comparison data looked really strong in favor of the Bridges resources for the kindergarten through second grade so far. They only had fall and winter data.
We've provided that data to the board.
Right, we do have that report. That's a PowerPoint. I mean, anybody who wants to look at that, I think we can make it available, obviously. It's a comparison, really, of two groups, one with Bridges and one with a different program. So.
And they were doing the comparison. They were also piloting the 3rd through 5th grade, and they had to stop the research because the other resource, the parents were getting upset that their children were not in Bridges, and they had to jettison it, and just everyone's using Bridges now.
And the name of that city is Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. So that's some data, anyway, obviously.
I was hoping you could clarify the whole alignment curriculum instruction piece. I understand what the standards are. I understand that they're not a curriculum and they don't dictate instruction. So I'm still a little bit confused as to why, and again, I don't pretend to know what resource is the right one, but when we say a resource, like what Pam was talking about, a Math in Focus or another resource, that how can we have degrees of alignment if the standards are, if a resource addresses the standards, but you said Math in Focus hasn't changed their instruction, the standards don't mandate instruction. So why would a resource need to change its instruction for us to be able, for it to align? Does that make sense? I'm kind of lost as to where we can look at a resource and then have to stop looking at a resource. As long as there's a way for teachers to address the standards, teach to the standards, why does the resource have to instruct in a particular way? Sorry.
So I think through the work that teachers have done through the past year of really digging into those standards, they've seen a real difference in what these particular set of standards are asking them to teach. And it's not just a skill, but it's a level of thinking. And especially with respect to the practice standards, it's a new way of thinking and getting kids to really be thinking in a math classroom that does require a new resource, which is, we would have loved to keep using everyday math and not be having these conversations, but they felt that it did not align, it was not meeting the needs as they saw the depth of the new standards. Is that?
No, I understand why we can't use everyday math anymore, but if Singapore, if any other program, says that their resource is aligned, there's multiple districts in our DIRG that are using Singapore Math and Math in Focus. So why is it good enough for them but not good enough for us, I guess is the question. I mean, everybody's following the same Common Core standards, so.
Maybe I can help address. A lot of districts that we've been contacting are all in just about the same place we are. By the way, we do have everyday math, the Common Core edition, which we purchased in 2011 or something, but pretty much we had to update our edition anyway because we had already skipped a new edition. And this one just has a comparison, an alignment document in there. part of the reason is, the resources haven't been available. We've seen that, we've read about it in Ed Week, we've seen it in all the journals. And so people are picking and choosing. And just like Guilford teachers have been, and just like we recommended for them in the first year of implementation of the new curriculum, you can take this lesson from Everyday Math, you can take this lesson from Engage New York, you can take this lesson from the State of Georgia website, and we gave teachers a lot of choices. But the reality is teachers have to sit down and then go through all those resources and make some decisions, and that was very, very time consuming. And so therefore we said if we could find a resource that was really, really rich, that would help support our teachers in the curriculum, then we should do that. And, we already know that we want to make sure there's more performance tasks in Bridges, but the committee came back and said, this is a rich document. This is the one that we really think that we should go with. But other districts, a lot of them are in the same place that we are right now, and they're picking and choosing, and some of them haven't done an adoption. Some of them are in the process. I know when we made a visit to Madison to actually watch Bridges in action, they were telling us about, so this group, this district is coming for a visit. So they had already, people were lining up to come and see. So a lot of them are in the same place that we are.
So is your hypothesis that a district using a Singapore math program, their teachers are having to supplement outside of Singapore math?
That is correct.
Yes.
And they're probably having to pick and choose activities from different parts of the program. Yes.
Okay.
Maria, why don't you stay at the table with us?
Yeah, you should probably stay in the area.
You're going to get a lot of walking back and forth.
And I should just say one of the other, on the differentiated instruction question, there was an international baccalaureate school that we got a report from, Weld County, Colorado, which is, I looked up on the internet, so it must be true, is just east of Fort Collins, so a university town. On the differentiated instruction question, how have the resources met the needs of your high-achieving students and your struggling learners? They previously had to create separate sections of math at each grade for the number of students who needed to accelerate a grade in math, and now we only have 2 students who need that out of the whole school. The challenge, suggestions, as well as the engaging, investigative problem-solving nature of the task provides the needed challenge for all students. So that's some other data. So anyway, comment for a favorable, what are you saying, Mr. Kazin? What's the right language?
People in favor.
Thank you.
I'm Kevin Flanagan, 3rd grade teacher at Guilford Lakes. I also live at 11 Watering Pond Road. I'm just going to talk to, as 3rd grade teachers, our team got together and we grabbed some supplemental materials from Bridges, which were online. And we were looking for some things to do about area. So our children had very little experience with the area and the concept of area. So we did a 6-lesson little kind of mini unit on area, which kind of built upon the lessons until they got to a final culminating activity in which they created their own like ladybug home. So they gave a template and then they had to come up with the rooms, and they were given just a total amount of area, space, and then they had to try to create rooms that fit within there. So there was opportunities for children to do all different types of answers. And we just wrote a little letter here among the 3rd grade team that I'd like to read. Said 3rd grade teachers at Guilford Lakes decided to explore the Bridges math after it was introduced to us. We found the lessons to be challenging yet fun for the students. The lessons progressed through the different Bloom's learning domains. We taught a total of 6 lessons on area. We found the lessons built upon each other and gave the opportunity to use the various domains of Bloom's taxonomy, which supports differentiation within the classroom. Students were expected to work together and problem solve. And one of the lessons we chose, students worked in small groups to apply what they have learned about multiplication, area, and perimeter. Given graph paper and specific criteria, students were assigned to design and plan a house for a ladybug. This assignment challenged the students to apply what they have recently learned in measurement, multiplication, division area, and perimeter. They then shared the various designs they created and had to explain how they determined the measurements and their plan. This demonstrates that students need to have a higher depth of knowledge and the use of the higher order domains. We found that Bridges was less teacher-directed than other resources that have been available to us. Although we only use a small supplemental part of this program, we are very excited to have the opportunity to use everything Bridges has to offer. Thank you, Jen Brown, myself, Greg Shiloski, and Chris Vail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask, the third grade is the beta version. Did you find any errors in what you were, in the 5-unit mini lesson that you did?
As far as like typographical errors or anything?
Of any variety?
No, I mean, I have copies of all the lessons. I could leave them for you. You could look at it, yeah. But we didn't find any errors. There was even a scripted, teacher says, and, I didn't do that. But, there is the opportunity for that. For the newer teacher coming in, it would be a place to start. I mean, some of the things it explains exactly like the progression of how the lesson goes. So, usually the way we did it was we just kind of introduced it, gave them the task, and then the kids went out and did it. And then while they were in groups, we kind of just went around like the workshop model and would just work with particular groups depending on the various needs. But I didn't find any errors, no.
Good. And my other question was, did you enjoy using this resource?
Yeah, you know what? I really liked it, yes. It was, similar to when I taught in New Haven, there was a program we used there that was similar to that, where it was more student-directed, and the teacher was more like a facilitator. So you just might teach a quick little 5-10 minute lesson and send them off. In this particular case, I didn't even tell them what area it was. The first task was a table about the size of this. I said, you need to find the area of that table. Here are some supplies, go do it. And then the kids just went, and eventually they figured it out,
And did the kids enjoy it?
They loved it, yes. They enjoyed it, yes, they did. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Flanagan makes an important point. While the resource will have scripted components, our curriculum has no expectation for teachers to follow any scripted component. Again, the teachers are responsible for delivering the curriculum and writing lesson plans for each day. They have access to this resource from which to draw. As he said, a more experienced teacher, I didn't do that. He looked at the script, but he knew how to shape that to his own style and his own approach. There is no expectation in the Guilford Public Schools that if we walk through the buildings on day 110, that everybody is on a certain script for day 110. It is a resource from which our teachers will draw. And the richness of it sort of differentiates itself to the teachers at different levels of experience as well. Remember that our teachers work together in professional learning communities, so they're not making those decisions in a vacuum. They're making it collaboratively in grade level teams that meet on a regular basis.
Okay. Somebody who is not in favor of adopting this particular material, or has questions, I guess, to be more.
Anybody else?
Yes,
maybe
more.
Hi, my name is Dave DeMille. I am a resident of Guilford, live on 161 Foxwood Road South. I'm a parent of 3 school-age children in the Guilford system, or 2 in the Guilford system. 1 was here for part of the year. And I've introduced myself via email to many of you on the board, just to let other folks in the audience know. I'm a professor of physics at Yale, and I spent a lot of time with our kids this year doing homework and focusing really on math this year with them. I spent quite a bit of time reviewing a selection of materials from the Bridges and Mathematics resources that were made available to us. And in particular, I focused on the material from the 3rd grade homework assignments, mostly because this was something that I was very familiar with and spent a lot of time with. And as I sent in my detailed comments to the board, my experience of the 3rd grade homework assignments was that essentially on every other page of the homework assignment, I found something in the phrasing of the questions or the way the material was expected to be processed by the children that made me, as a professional physicist, someone who works with mathematics integrally every day, as like breathing to me, I would read these questions and find myself pausing and thinking, what in the world are you talking about? And then having to process for quite some time to work out exactly what they had in mind, what the pedagogical goal was, and why I found it confusing. And at the end of this, after going through 50 pages and finding what I found to be something like a dozen different types of errors and something like 25 individual instances of errors, many of the types of errors were repeated, I found myself being very skeptical about the proposal to adopt Bridges for this year. I'm very sympathetic with the teachers. I think both parents and teachers were frustrated by the lack of resources that were available for adopting the new curriculum this year. As a parent, I could say our experience with the Engage New York materials was overwhelmingly negative. And my sense of the Bridges in Mathematics materials was that it was dramatically better than what we've been using for the last year. It was more thoughtful, more careful, and I'm well aware that no textbook, no educational resource is ever going to be perfect, but there has to be a threshold for closeness to perfection. And when I found myself going through homework problems and literally on every other page finding something that I, as someone who thinks about mathematics, uses it on a regular basis, found difficult to process in a third grade homework assignment, it really left me wondering, is there not something better? And again, I teach at the college level. I have very little familiarity with what materials are available to elementary school teaching, but I was pointed just as an example to the Math in Focus materials that were referenced by some of the earlier speakers. And again, I did a similar review of that material, just a spot check to get a sense, are there the same sort of issues here? Because I could imagine perhaps this is the norm for the field. But what I found was, in fact, on a similar spot check of 50 pages of third grade homework assignments for the Math in Focus materials, I couldn't find any similar sorts of pedagogical difficulties. So to me, this left me with the impression that there's an existence proof, as we like to say. We know there's a resource that doesn't have the sorts of detailed problems in explaining concepts that I found in the Bridges in Mathematics material. Now, we've heard a little bit of discussion about the Math in Focus material, and I'll join the other speakers who have brought this up in saying that I have no basis to say this is the resource that we should adopt or to advocate for this one in particular. But I was really surprised when I looked into the details for the process of which textbooks were in fact reviewed in detail and why, that the Math in Focus was not reviewed in detail by our textbook review committee. And the reasoning, as we've heard, was that it was deemed to be insufficiently well aligned with the Common Core state standards. But again, as several folks have pointed out, but I'll try to emphasize this, some other parents who've been discussing this issue have become aware that there are something like 6 or 8, I don't know if you have the count, Melissa, of other districts in our peer group who have decided to adopt this particular text and decided that it is in fact sufficiently aligned with the Common Core state standards for their purposes. These include districts like Greenwich, among others. So,
do you know what other ones? Just, I mean, if you don't know it right off the top of your head, just shoot me an email.
And let me ask you, are they adopting this, or they've been using it right along?
So, I mean, my understanding is that Greenwich adopted it recently. I'm not sure if it was last year or 2 years ago, but my wife, Melissa, who many of you know, is the keeper of all data of this sort.
Farmington,
Yeah.
Glastonbury, Greenwich, Wilton, Weston, Ridgefield, North Haven, Easton, Reading, and Westport uses the old Singapore curriculum. This is just the list of the Connecticut
Old
districts.
Singapore curriculum.
Just Westport uses the old Singapore curriculum.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. She has the list, so I don't have to pull that up. But in fact, about Madison, I heard that Tom Scarice, actually, he had experience with Math in Focus and would have preferred it, but he bowed to his curricular department who chose to do the Bridges in Mathematics.
He doesn't strike me as a kind of a guy that bows to much of anything.
What? I can't hear you.
Not the kind of guy who bows to much of anything, but.
Yeah,
Mr.
I know.
Scarice was enthusiastic in his recommendation that we come and was very generous in making his training and his classrooms open to us so that we could go visit and see the program in Madison.
Okay. No, all I was saying is that he doesn't strike me as somebody who would give in to a committee that he didn't agree with. But
I submit that it's hearsay.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't speak, I would
and
love to meet him.
I don't have a lot of direct information either, obviously, just what I read in the internet, you know.
Yeah, but speaking with the publisher's rep, I in fact did initiate contact with the Math in Focus publisher because it originally came to my attention when I saw, it may have been this time last year, that Greenwich said that they were dumping everyday math because they didn't feel that it was aligned with the Common Core and that they were adopting Math in Focus in its stead. And so that is what made me look at this as an alternative. Again, I'm not a teacher. I'm sure that there are other textbooks, but it's surprising. And Maria wrote me about why you were not interested in following it. It's because they had a map of alignment, but they didn't change how they did the problems. They didn't change their materials. And I think you don't have to change how you have your problems. A good teacher depends on a good problem set, and I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel to have good math material.
Okay, we'll tag. Right, so I guess maybe I would just summarize by saying that based on what I saw as both a parent and someone who looked at math with an eye to what understanding, what conceptual framework would I like younger students to have as they advance through to more advanced mathematics, I find myself simply asking the question, have we failed to look at materials that might be better than Bridges in Mathematics? While I can look at the materials and see there are evident strengths to them, as I said, they seem to be dramatically better than the materials that I've seen coming home with our children this year. And I'll even go beyond that. I'll say that there were even to me evident strengths in terms of how engaging the material was, the types of understanding that they were attempting to convey to the students. But where I had a problem was when I dug down into the actual mechanics of what questions were asked, how they were asked, what graphical representations were given, and so forth, where I found them to be errors, often errors at a subtle level that would tend to undermine the kind of long-term deep understanding that's really the goal of a curricular change like this. So at any rate, I hope that the board will vote to table the decision and ask the Curriculum Materials Committee to go back and review other potential resources that, while perhaps not so strictly aligned with the Common Core, are better in terms of the actual practice of pedagogy that they give to the students.
Can I ask you a question? We have the pages that, some of the examples that you went through, and you made comments or corrections, and they were responded to in red. Is that, who responded to those?
That was my writing in red.
You wrote in red?
No.
The publisher.
The one that you have,
Right, you wrote-
his
you
is
made-
in bold.
Okay.
His original was in red, and then we asked the publisher to respond to his comments. And so what you see in a box with the arrow is from the publisher. And Clay is here, he's the one that received those, and so he might be able to speak a little bit more to those.
Did you see these responses from the publisher, Dr. DeMille?
No.
Well, then you won't know whether they were responsive or not.
We should send those to him.
Yeah, I would be very interested to see them. I can also add that after I sent my detailed comments on the third grade materials, I spoke with Clay at some length, and he pointed out to me that the third through fifth grade materials were still drafts, whereas the earlier grades, the K through 2, had already been in practice. So I went and did a similar sort of review of the second grade material, and I would say I found that to have many fewer errors. There was still one point where there was a pedagogical decision that was made that I found utterly baffling and contrary to the way that advanced thinkers think about mathematics. But it was the second grade material that I reviewed was not as filled with errors as the third grade material that I saw.
And Clay is the parent representative that was on the committee?
Who is actually a professor of mathematics.
Right.
You know. Maybe we should ask him.
Who's also here.
Yeah, why don't you come on? And, I mean, Dr. Freeman, I'm going to give Professor DeMille.
Absolutely, and I'll forward an electronic copy as well.
Right. Clay went to high school with my husband. I was just trying to figure out why Clay was commenting on a publisher. Right, no, I knew that.
Thank you, Clay. I'm sorry to put you on the
Oh, that's
spot,
okay.
but I figured that you at least can talk about the process and some of the responses.
So I'm Clay Kruzek. I'm a professor of mathematics at Southern Connecticut State University. I live at 105 Ledge Hill in Guilford. So I was asked by the principal of Melissa Jones to come in and talk to her, which is always good to hear when you're from the principal of your daughter's school. That's excellent. And so they found out what I did, and so they asked me to be on the curriculum committee, and I actually looked at the grades 6 through 8, and that made no decision. That's the story of my life. Every time I'm on a committee, nothing gets done, so this is good. And then Maria asked me to look at the bridges, and I looked through it, and I didn't look through it very long at the time, and I thought it was well aligned, and I said, okay, I can understand what was gone. And I hadn't looked at the take-home portion that Dr. DeMille had mentioned. And so I was like, okay, this is nice. And then I looked further into it, and it was the Math Learning Center, and before I came back to Connecticut, and I should say I grew up in Guilford. I graduated from Guilford. Miss Worrell was my second grade teacher. Miss Dudley was my sixth grade English teacher. And so I've lost track. I'm on the onset of Lyme disease, so I apologize. All right. And so I looked at the curriculum, and everything seemed good. And then I said I spent 7 years in Oregon before I came back to Connecticut to live close to my mommy and daddy. And I actually had worked with the Math Learning Center before, and I hadn't realized that until the curriculum had been selected and I had looked at it. And they were a nice group to work with. And then Dr. DeMille had asked to meet for coffee, and I had looked at the comments, and I was like, you are dead on right. This is completely inaccurate. And so I emailed them on a Friday evening, and then Saturday morning I got a whole list of the responses. So I was very impressed with how quickly the turnaround time was for the errors that they had found. And I admit there are probably other errors that Dr. DeMille did not see. Okay, so and there will be errors along the way. And no curriculum is perfect. And I should point out, so I've heard Math in Focus a few times. And so while I was sitting in the audience, I looked at it for 5 minutes. They had sample pages, and I found 2 pedagogical errors like that. Okay, and one of them had to do with, they talk about regrouping a number when it's actually breaking down, and that's a fundamental difference that needs to be, that's like carrying versus borrowing, which is, we don't use in the math ed curriculum when I teach. And then also, there was a weird thing that there's a subtle nuance that they didn't quite point out that was very important. And I should say that not only am I a professor of mathematics, I spend most of my time teaching future elementary teachers mathematics. So this is kind of right up my alley. And actually, a lot of the materials that I saw in Bridges was right aligned with what I would like my students to learn, and actually what I teach, with representing the manipulatives, representing the concrete versus the abstract. And it's not just flat out playing with numbers and drawing little maps. There is some flat out, the old times tables, I mean the times multiplication tables, you got to do them quickly. There's plenty of problems that are just rote memorization, which is fantastic in my opinion. So I would certainly endorse it. I understand the concerns about grades 3 through 5, but based on the fact that they responded to me so quickly, if we were to adopt it next year, I expect the same sort of response. They are a small, nonprofit organization. They are in a very tiny building, smaller than this. I can guarantee you that. Houghton Mifflin, who makes Math and Focus, is a giant conglomerate. You will not get the response time, in my opinion, that you would get from the Math Learning Center. So that's what I would say. Yes?
May I ask a question? I read Dr. DeMille's comments and then also read the comments from the publisher. And I'll tell you what my first response was to the comments from the publisher. He agreed with more than half of Dr. DeMille's comments, and quite frankly, that worries me.
Well, it's still being edited. So I would say that if you're making a 3-grade curriculum with all the textbooks that they have, there will be plenty of errors. When I teach my calculus classes or any other book, I find plenty of errors where the book isn't great in general, and then there are some issues that I find along the way. So I would say that I am not surprised in a non-finalized version that there are some errors. I too was a little bit concerned about some of the errors, and they should agree with them because they were wrong, so there's nothing to be. But they were still being edited, and so I expect a good number of those errors to be corrected.
I guess I'm concerned that they weren't caught by the publisher themselves.
Well, they weren't published yet.
And one of the comments...
They're not published yet. They're still in draft form.
No, I understand it's still in draft form, but it's something we're planning on adopting. And we found we're thinking, considering adoption of, and I guess I'm a little bit concerned at comments like, thank you, you're exactly right. If you would be willing to give me more guidance, could you show me where else the problems are? I mean, I'm a little concerned, I guess. And
my guess is they would look at it again. So that's what I would say. So
Okay.
that's a valid concern. I would fully admit that. But I would have full faith that even if there are errors along the way, in the next couple of years, they send out edits, they update the edits, is that correct? And they have updates on the webpage, so notify the faculty. So I would expect that to be correct.
Let me just see if I can clarify my thinking on this. My understanding is that the K through 2 has been out for a year and has been used by numerous districts, and that most people think that that portion of the curriculum has been reviewed sufficiently that it's usable. The 3 through 5, as I understand it, is a beta. And the initial recommendation, as I remember it from the last month's meeting, was that we adopt this curriculum and now, so that we could have the summer for the teachers to get familiar with it. But it's come to my attention that the publisher is in the process of a major edit of the 3 through 5 version of this, and that edit will be ready sometime in June. And it strikes me that hopefully the kind of errors that Dr. Bellas-Tracy and Dr. DeMille have pointed out, and that the publisher acknowledged, at least the bulk of those would be corrected in this this review process that is supposed to be done in June. So that it seems to me that if we were to go forward with the 3 to 5 part, we should at least defer the purchase until after this review has been made and we're getting the, shall we say, new improved version.
So thinking about the districts who have implemented the kindergarten through second grade last year, that those resources were at the exact same point that the third through fifth grade will be this year. So they had been piloted and field tested in other districts, just like they're piloting and field testing the third through fifth grade right now, but they had not been officially released. So throughout this year, they have been making revisions, and there's a very clear link online for each unit that teachers can click on at the beginning of each unit just to see if there's any updates. And most of them are things like, this calendar activity is actually in the teacher guide, not in the kit materials. Just really small connections, so they can look it up. But that probably was developed throughout the year as schools were using it. And I predict that that will probably happen throughout this coming year. We're not sure if there will be a reprint after the June revision. So some of these issues may still be there throughout next year, but looking at the K through 2 and the revisions they posted and the response that these districts have, that was not something that anybody harped on in any of the districts. Some mentioned it, oh, there are a few things we needed to attend to, but it was not something that, in conversation after conversation with superintendents, principals, math specialists, teachers, nobody said that they couldn't use the resources because of edits that needed to be made.
All right, but now let me understand. Unlike the physics book, which we're going to be asked to approve, which is a bound, very strict resource, my understanding from looking at this stuff over at Latham House is that this is a whole bunch of workbooks and individual sheets, et cetera. Is it relatively easy to make these corrections in the format that this curriculum is in?
And I think that gets to sort of one of your questions about why some of the big publishers like Everyday Math and Investigations, why they still haven't put out their new material yet, because it comes in big bound resources, and once they make an edition, they can't make any adjustments. So because this is all in PDFs, teachers can print out any revisions, stick it into the binder, it's all 3-hole punched, and make those changes without too much effort.
Oh, okay.
And who pays for that?
Printing a page to...
Oh, I mean, no, just in terms of, do you have to buy the revisions? Or
No, it's right on there already.
We have
it's
access to the PDF.
And it's a really clearly defined link. Unit 2, grade 2, these are the changes we've made so far, and you can just see where those are.
Every teacher that gets the materials will also have an online account. That's one of the things that they give us, so that they can have all of their materials also on PDF form, and those, of course, can be corrected, very easily and quickly. So, a teacher would say, or they could say as a group, there's an error here, we're going to print this page. Or we've noticed in Unit 3 they're saying to print page 13 or something. And so they do it, and they just replace that page in their binder. If it is a student piece, and we have purchased the home connection or the student book, we would not use that page in the student book and print the student sheet, so that it would be the corrected version as well. So the mid-June tune-up that they're saying that they're working on now is, where we think they're going to find a lot of these pieces. And they've already said that they're going to include these in the mid-June tune-up as well. So, but I'm certain that by the end of next year, they'll do a reprint, and the materials will, incorporate all of the changes that they've made over the course of the year. We would have to say we're going in there eyes wide open, that the 3 through 5 is new, but we think it is a rich resource that engages kids and really gets to the thinking piece, and that the kinds of I cannot tolerate an error, especially typos, that really might throw kids for a loop, and so I want to make sure that those are corrected. But the ones that, and anything else, but I do think the response time was wonderful, and I feel good about even recommending this, and with the encouragement of the teachers and what I know about the product now, which is a lot more than I knew about it 2 months ago.
So it sounds like something that we like in concept. We like the presentation, but it has some kinks to be worked out,
Correct.
as is always the case with a new textbook. My question is, does it ever happen, or is this even reasonable, that someone here in Guilford would go through the entire, every page of everything with the level of detail that Dr. DeMille did, and do exactly what he did with the whole thing before it gets into any children's hands? Does that happen, or can it happen? Or is it just a matter of people having to find these things and then not get distracted before they have a chance to put in the complaint or whatever?
The answer is yes, that will happen with Maria and the PLCs, the grade level teacher teams. We will have 2 layers of that happening built into the system. One is an individual who has that K through 8 responsibility, but again, our teachers work in grade level teams collaboratively. So we will have 2 layers and partner with the publisher to get that information to them when we find real concerns.
All right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I did also, like other board members.
Can I just, I'm sorry, are there other people that want to make comments? Okay, well, okay, why don't we, I'm sorry, we've collapsed the intended, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just think that we ought to hear from as many people.
Marion Breeze again. Just one question, and that is, while there are benefits to having a smaller company that is engaged with you, the benefit to a larger company is the stability of knowing that they're going to be there 5 years from now. And I'm just curious about, this is a huge investment for us to make, and hopefully it wouldn't just be K through 5, but that we would invest in a consistent curricular materials for K through 12 using a consistent program so that the students are familiar with the materials and it builds upon what they learned the previous year using similar materials from the same company. So I was just wondering, in terms of the vetting and what the process is in ensuring that this company will be there over the long term. I'm a little worried when somebody responds on a Saturday morning after getting an email Friday night, and I just wonder what the process is for that to ensure they're around for the long haul.
My clients are happy when I respond on Saturday morning. How about yours?
I was very impressed with the thoroughness of the response, and I'm now impressed with the fact that it came overnight, but that is absolutely a concern.
What do we know about the company?
It's been around the first edition has been around for many years. They've had their hands in other small pockets of math instruction at different grade levels, but are now primarily focusing on kindergarten through 5th grade. I would say the response that it's being adopted now throughout the country, the number of phone calls that the districts that I talk to have received from other people asking the same questions and being interested in the product, I think it has a long life ahead of it.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question off Marion's question then? They concentrate on K through 5, so the thought, and I'm not sure whether this is advantageous or not, of thinking that we would get something, as she suggested, K through 8, or is actually not
They haven't
consideration.
said that they have anything in the works for the middle school.
Okay.
And I'll make an effort at answering that slightly differently. This is a significant investment. We're talking about approximately $160,000 that we're going to invest in students K through 5 in this material. But we have been, Dr. Keene says, moving forward with our eyes wide open. We're clearly going through a transitional phase in a number of areas. Textbooks themselves are evolving at this time. Textbooks, we had a rich debate at this Board of Education about whether we should be buying a bound 400-page textbook or an electronic copy of that textbook, which evolves, which comes up with corrected iterations annually. I'm willing to suggest that while I take my fiscal responsibilities to this community very seriously, I take the instructional responsibilities more seriously. If I had to come back to this Board of Education 4 years from now and say that there is a better resource that has been developed as districts around the country have come together, quite honestly, for that movement that Mr. Bloss is impatient for around materials, that will occur around reading and writing and numeracy in the next 5 to 10 years as this work takes root and districts have common standards that they're working towards. I would have no hesitation to come forward and suggest that we purchase a different material 2, 3, or 4, or 5 years out if that becomes necessary. At this moment, and I can differentiate somewhat between 7 and 8 more than 6, 7, and 8. But at the 7th and the 8th grade level, teachers are subject area specialists focusing in mathematics. At the elementary level, we ask our teachers to teach all subjects every day, all day long. This isn't just the best that's out there. That is true, but it's also a very good product about which our teachers are excited, around which our teachers are excited. And they need the materials which they can select from the way Mr. Flanagan talked. So he can look at it and he can make a critical decision. I do think, I wouldn't call it an emergency, but is there some urgency to supporting primarily the elementary level teachers? Yes, and I wouldn't hesitate if I had to come back in 3 or 4 years and make a new purchase. It is worth the investment in our staff and in our students. Now, I say that very clearly. We're not compromising. We didn't bring in a middle level product forward because we haven't found anything that we think is worth the investment. We do believe this is worth the investment, but I want to be careful to say that the environment won't change in a handful of years. It's changing very rapidly right now, and I want you to have confidence that we will come back and make evolving recommendations as that environment changes around us.
Somewhat begs the question of why not wait just one more year? Why not wait until next spring and this beta edition is developed more and see whether it is the best resource?
We are doing that at the middle level, and at this level we feel that we have found a product that, for a lot of the reasons that you've heard tonight, is ready to go. I'm not suggesting that we're going to throw it away in 2 years. I think that we have a good product with a good company that is really looking to partner with teachers in the classroom. And like you, to me, that's exciting. I think that is the direction that textbooks are actually traveling. They are going to become more responsive, and it's going to be more of a collaboration between a classroom teacher and some organization that can actually respond in a much more nimble and quicker fashion. I'm excited about this product. I just want to put the asterisk on it that I don't necessarily suggest we're buying into a 10-year relationship. It may be shorter than that, and if somebody needs to explain the finances, I will sit at this table and explain why we're making a secondary investment. I'm very excited about the product. I hear from our teachers that they're excited about the product, but I want to be careful that you don't think we're buying into a 10-year relationship. I'm not sure that that's going to happen. We're not even sure that we're staying in a relationship with our insurance provider right now. I'm certainly not going to wed myself to one textbook publisher.
And the teachers are excited about it. And those that have used it in the classroom are very excited about some of the activities that have been, they've used in the classroom. They really like, you know, they've spent the last year pulling from here and there and everywhere and not having a real base. And when you're doing that as a teacher, you don't, then all your time is consumed with that. It makes it very difficult then to provide the kinds of enrichment activities at this end and activities at the other end, because you're concerned about your base, your day-to-day. This is a plan that the teachers went through. They love it. They're very excited about it. They love the lessons, and they love the way the kids are responding to it. The kids are loving math. Now, how often do you hear that said? Not very often. Most kids, there's only the few, those that really love the math. But in general, the larger numbers, they're loving math, and they're enjoying what they're doing. They're loving the working, the activities that they're doing, and I think that makes it very much a plan that we should pursue and we should go ahead with.
Let me turn back to comments. Please, come on up. I think we've done away with the alternating system, so it's just anybody else. Anybody else who wants to comment, just get ready.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Succi. I teach at Melissa Jones School. I also live at 190 Schoolside Lane. I have a comment myself, but I'm also here to speak for my coworker, Maureen Shields, who teaches kindergarten and went to Madison to view their full-day kindergarten. I had the opportunity to view the Bridges Math resource. I noticed the lessons are designed with a combination of large and small group instruction, as well as hands-on materials. Believe that the materials were also parent, teacher, and student-friendly in the resources. I feel that Bridges Math can support the workshop model, teaching style which meets the needs of all learners through intentionally designed small group work and independent learning. I believe the Bridges Math resource will accommodate the needs of students, teachers, and parents in Guilford. From the words of Maureen Shields, I recently spoke with some kindergarten teachers in Madison who implemented the Bridges resource and have seen tremendous growth in their students' math ability this year. They have noticed an increase in their students' use of math vocabulary to explain and solve problems, as well as an overall increase in their kindergarten math skills. When the committee first met to look at the math programs that are available to us, Bridges clearly stood out from all the others. It is clearly organized, easy for teachers to follow, provides for enrichment as well as intervention for struggling learners, has supporting materials, and allows for students to explore, problem solve, and discuss math on a daily basis. It is not driven solely by teacher lessons and student workbook pages or confusing and repetitive hands-off learning. This program will enable the kindergarten teachers to teach their students in a clear, organized, and consistent manner which supports the Common Core state standards as well as the principles of learning. We will also have common assessments consistent with math, language, and grade level appropriate materials for the youngest learners. I strongly feel that this program will move Guilford students forward in their learning and understanding of math.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to take any questions. Maria will.
My name is Suzanne Bailey Rice. I have many levels of interest in this as I am a resident of Guilford on Half Mile Road here in town. I also have a third grader at Calvin Lee and a sixth grader at Baldwin. And I am a special ed teacher at Lee, so many levels there. I have something that I prepared to read, and I also have a letter from some of the teachers at Calvin Lee to read. As mentioned, as we were talking about differentiation within the units, not only does Bridges provide differentiation within the modules for each unit for the general education teachers to make modifications for achieving students, ELL students, and struggling students, but they also have a very detailed intervention and support program for specialists to provide tiered support through the SRBI process. This is an area that I particularly had a lot of interest in when viewing the online programs and also in the committee that looked at all of the math programs. Just the intervention and support program alone has 9 volumes in order to look at. It starts with early place value and works up through multiplication, division, goes to fractions, money, decimals. It really covers the entire span of the kindergarten through 5 program. The first volume alone includes 252 pages with 40 sessions of sequential instructional learning that starts at the kindergarten level and moves up through the grades. While this might be overwhelming, as some have mentioned, people that have looked at the program thought it might be overwhelming for teachers. I can assure you that for a special education teacher, it is very exciting. You know, each unit of the 40 units is a 1 to 3 fast-paced activity that will total about 10 minutes. A 10-minute activity or game and a 10-minute practice that will help transfer the instructional warm-up and lesson to a pencil paper task. The layout of the lessons, they're easy to follow, and it's easy for an interventionist to locate the group of lessons to start for each student and their individual needs. Also, after each 5 lessons that you teach, there's an opportunity for progress monitoring. This is a huge need for SRBI process in Guilford. I was on the math committee. I've looked over the intervention. I was very excited at the potential for interventions that I will be able to provide for struggling students. Currently, without Bridges, it has been very difficult to create all materials and activities needed for such interventions. When students are struggling with the grade level content, we as special education teachers need to assess for baseline data, reteach the lessons, and create activities to provide additional practice We have to progress monitor and reassess the content, all without resources. And we're expected to make all of these. And with time constraints, this can be very difficult. Bridges gives us clearly developed mini units to use while teaching, assessing, and progress monitoring our students. The lessons directly relate to the grade level lessons, but give additional resources and scaffold lessons for us to reteach the topics or just to provide additional practice, depending on the needs of those students. Bridges will be an amazing resource to general education teachers and special education teachers as it provides fun, rigorous lessons, excellent resources, and reaches all of our students. It gives educators resources for every level of learning. And then I also have a letter from some of the teachers.
I think we're going to have to ask you to take a pause because we have to change the tape.
Sorry.
So we'll take a short recess.